Welcome to Stateless. It's a podcast about what building actually looks like when you're in the trenches, behind the scenes. Not after it worked, not once the narrative is established, but while you're figuring it out, fixing the mistakes and deciding if it's worth pushing forward. The reason I'm doing this is simple. Most of the stories we hear are post-edited, but the stuff that matters happens when things are still half-cooked, unclear and fragile. That's what I want to explore here. Today's episode is exactly that. Mira was a project that already existed, but it didn't really have momentum. It wasn't dead, but it wasn't exceptional. Derek and his team of dinos stepped in, took it over, and started reshaping it from the inside until they turned it into a microchain. This conversation is about what that feels like, taking ownership of something mid-flight, deciding what to keep, what to kill, and finding conviction in the process. This is episode 1. This is Stateless.
In 1978, they built the first blockchain, not in Silicon Valley, but in the basements of Wall Street. In 1982, deregulation didn't just spark a boom, it lit a fuse. And in the summer of '85, DeFi found its claws. At the center of it all stood the DLM 1000, the first decentralized liquidity machine. No middlemen, no restrictions, just pure trading infrastructure. Today, we introduce the DLM 2000. Faster, smarter, meaner. For those who trade not for permission, but for performance. Microchain. Trade like a predator.
Hey.
Yeah, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. And you?
Yeah, all good. Good to have you, good to have you here.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Awesome. So, want to jump in?
Let's do it. Let's go.
Awesome. So before we start going through like the behind the scenes of Microchain, I'd love to hear about your story. Like, what was your life before Microchain? What kind of stuff were you working on, building toward?
Sure. Yeah. No, I can take you back. I've been in crypto since 2018. And before that, I was in Web 2 and working on various types of projects, all in tech, doing a lot of product, and been very interested in just startups in general most of my life. But back in 2018, I slowly got introduced to a lot of people that were in the sort of early Ethereum space and early in the crypto scene. And, back then was kind of the first time I met people that really were, pushing the envelope and really being at the edge of where technology was. There's a lot of very smart people thinking independently, thinking deeply about, our world and, the problems that's facing us. And I kind of just got sucked into it because it was the first time that I felt that my job and the work I was doing was intellectually satisfying. And so I slowly got into this space, was working on a bunch of smaller projects for a while, got introduced more and more into DeFi as DeFi Summer came around. And then I eventually, ended up working more actively in various type of crypto projects and sort of more like product type roles, and really engulfing myself into the space, into the sort of worldview and the ideology that the whole crypto space and blockchain rests on. And yeah, that was basically the start, and that's kind of how I ended up here.
Great story, man. Like, is it like the first time you're building a project of your own? Like, was there something before Microchain, or yeah?
I mean, I'd worked on my own startup, which was a Web 2 prop tech startup for a while, that I started from scratch, and so I kind of knew what it was like to take something and fully own it. But after that, I mostly worked in other projects and was involved in kind of leadership positions and product roles. But it wasn't really until Microchain again that I became kind of a full-fledged founder and CEO again. So that was kind of the chance to try that again. The prop tech startup I did was, unfortunately, ended up being quite unsuccessful because COVID hit and we lost all our clients overnight. And so we were kind of forced to pivot, and we went into consulting and started doing other things. And so Microchain's kind of the second shot, being able to do it fully, properly.
Yeah, I feel like COVID really hit everyone hard. Like me personally, I had a lot of stuff happen to me because of COVID, and that's probably one of the reasons I'm in crypto as well. So that's a story for another time. But yeah, like COVID really changed a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, that was definitely a fork in the road.
Yeah. So I think now we can go through Mira. Like would love to hear about how did Mira land in your hands? Like in the first place, like what state was it in when you took it over and everything?
Sure. Yeah, so the previous founders that had started it, I had been helping advising them and supporting them when they initially built a project, but they were running a other project as well, and this had a lot of stuff on their hands, and they saw this opportunity of launching a DEX on Fuel and having it ready for mainnet as being this big opportunity. And so they took the project on, but it was very much a stretch to get it ready before launch. And so they had worked really hard to get the first version of the app ready. I've been supporting them from the sidelines to help them kind of work through all the issues and get everything lined up. And after they had launched, they realized, the size of the project they'd taken on and the complexity of it, and running that at the same time as they were running this other project. And so they basically offered me to take it over and come in and basically lead the project. And that's how, this ended up in my hands. And I was at the time kind of in a place where that made sense, and it seemed like an exciting opportunity. I've been following Fuel, and I was very bullish on the project, and I was curious where it was going to go. And I thought, okay, well, if we can build a really great DEX on Fuel and become the primary liquidity hub, then that's going to be a great opportunity. That's when I wanted to, have a stab at.
Yeah, I feel you. And so was there like any part of you that was thinking this might not be worth it? Maybe I should start from scratch and build another DEX?
Yeah, I mean, that always would have been an option, but there was kind of two main things that were going through my mind at the time. The first thing was that, a DEX or AMMs are on new chains very often a winner take all type scenario. And at the time, Mira already had $8-9 million of TVL. We already had a lot of the users, a lot of the trust. And so building a new one would have been an uphill battle, especially if they would have stayed around and kept running it, or somebody else would have taken it over because it wouldn't have just been dropped anyway. And the second thing is that, you never really know how things are going to pan out. Everything in startups is a bet, and you just have to make the best guess you can at the time and, cover your bases. And so at the time, it seemed like an appropriate bet. And, even if it would have failed, it would always be an option to do, start from scratch if you needed it to. So at the time, it didn't seem like a bad choice. And, I still think it was a good option.
No, I totally feel what you're saying. Like the winner is usually the first player. So yeah, you just don't screw it, and it should be fine. So what was like the first thing you felt needed to change when you took it over?
Yeah, so there was many things going on at the time. First of all, the app had been put together really fast. Like it had to get launched, and I think the front end was built in a few months. And so it was very clear that the app, as it was standing at the time, was a bit hacky, and it wasn't as stable as we wanted it to be. And so that was one very obvious issue. The second issue was that the branding and kind of the look and feel of it wasn't great. And at the time, a lot of people had a lot of issues with it, and so the sentiment regarding the project and the associations people had to it wasn't great either. So those were two very big issues. And that, of course, the third issue was that, because the underlying Mira protocol the first version of it as like a Uniswap v2, the capital efficiency of the protocol wasn't that great either. And so these are kind of the big issues that we saw in front of us. And also the comms and everything that had been done before that, because of the transition period from the previous owners to me and my team, was kind of long and drawn out. The founder presence and the support and everything wasn't really where it needed to be. And so that was kind of the main issues that we saw and that we've been working on tackling.
Okay, so like a lot of poor history of a startup, basically, like that you needed to change completely, like from the back end to the front end to the comms, pretty much everything, basically. So when did it stop feeling like their project and start feeling like your project?
Honestly, it didn't really start feeling until our project that we did the rebrand, because spiritually speaking, we hadn't made a lot of the decisions that were there. But now that we were able to rebuild the front end from scratch, kind of put together this brand and this vibe, which came from the heart and came from our own feelings and motivations, it became a lot easier to relate to the project, because now there was a vision that was embodied that we could then keep iterating on and move forward.
Okay, I see. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Like the brand is kind of the DNA of the product. So when it's your brand, it's more of your project, and everyone can see it.
Yeah.
So now like let's go into like the process of like rebuilding a vision for this new project that you decided to call Microchain, right? If you had to describe what Microchain is, what would you say it is? Like, I see this whole universe with dinosaurs and everything.
Sure. Well, there's kind of the fun way to look at it, and then there's the more practical way to look at it. The vision we had for the branding and for the, Microchain cinematic universe, if you will, was what would a DEX look like if it was a hardware product that was built in the 80s? Microchain, the universe, is kind of funny because the idea behind it was kind of silly. It was like, well, what if the dinosaurs never were hit by a meteor? And what if they developed into kind of a humanoid race that lived a very similar history that we did, but instead of inventing blockchains, much later, in the 2000s, they invented it right after the internet was created. And what would that look like? And it's kind of funny because blockchains technically could have been invented in the early days of the internet. Like, technically speaking, they're quite simple machines. Like, they don't require very complicated and hardware. Of course, there's limitations to the early hardware as well. But our thinking was, well, what would it really look like if it was invented earlier? And then we kind of developed the branding and the story and the lore based off of that. And so Microchain kind of exists in the 80s during the financial boom on Wall Street, but then DeFi summer and blockchains were kind of part of it. And so the DLM 2000 is supposed to be this DEX, which is the best possible like trading machine that was built for this universe. And these dinosaurs and the humanoid dinosaurs are these smart, kind of ambitious, hardworking, financial dinosaurs that are building this and trying to make the best possible, trading infrastructure for traders. And so that was kind of the cinematic universe and the story of it. But of course, in a more practical sense, what we're trying to do is to build the best possible DEX for the Fuel network and for, the ecosystem that we're a part of. And so we want to, make the best possible user experience, most capital efficient markets, and do that utilizing the unique architecture of the Fuel ecosystem, the Fuel network, to get the power of that and infuse that into the technology and the user experience. And so that's kind of the vision. That's where we're going. But of course, the kind of Microchain cinematic universe is trying to kind of bring the vibes and the emotions into that as well.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I really like this universe that you created. I feel like it has this, retro, futuristic, pessimistic kind of vibe, which is super cool. Like the dinosaurs, like, are they coexisting or are they just a replacement of the humankind?
Yeah, no, they're definitely a replacement of the humankind, though. If you look at the trailer that we made for the rebrand launch yesterday, you'll see that there's one shot of Wall Street that has these just normal people walking around, and it was because it was impossible to create a street with a bunch of dinosaurs walking around because the AI just wasn't able to do it. So there's a little Easter egg in there where there is a part of that universe that has humans in it, but it really shouldn't.
Okay, okay, makes sense. So, when you decided about this whole story and universe, like, what's something that you decided Microchain had to be like that maybe wasn't obvious from the start?
What it had to be like? Well, it had to feel authentic and fun from the heart, right? This whole branding and the vibes here and everything is something that was just genuinely funny to us and was just something that we enjoyed doing. And if we didn't enjoy it, we didn't find the branding funny and all this type of stuff, then it wouldn't have worked because it would have felt contrived and fake. But the key thing that we figured out, it had to feel authentic to us. Otherwise, it'd be hard for us to expand upon it. And so, it's a little bit of a weird answer, but I think that's actually more important than it might seem if you want to create good marketing.
Yeah, I feel like I like brands that come from the heart because you can feel the authenticity of everything. So yeah, that's a very nice play here. So how do you make decisions when you're holding someone else's architecture? Like, obviously you can just shake up everything because there's already a community in place. There's like users. Like, how do you change everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, we have all these features we want to build and we have all these improvements we want to make. But, on one side, we need to ensure that the experience for the users keep working as expected. And we need to maintain what we already have. I mean, up until now, we've had to maintain the app in parallel as we built out this new version of it. And so there's just ongoing operational stuff we need to deal with in doing that. And then when it comes to building and adding to it, you kind of have to weigh, the trade-offs between ripping everything out and starting from scratch and iterating and improving what is already there. But when you iterate and improve on something that's already there, you're already constrained in various ways, right? Where there's certain changes that just can't be made, or you have to design things in a way that makes it work within the architecture that's already there. And so we've been working on refactoring and rebuilding things in parallel as we've been building new features. And we made the decision to keep adding to what's already there and iterating on it, because if we didn't, it would require us to spend all this upfront time to get it to a place where we had rebuilt everything before we can keep adding features. And so we've had to make this constant trade-off between should we just rebuild everything from scratch and have no updates and improvements, or do we refactor and then add to what's already there, and then we can keep iterating and having improvements a little bit slower than we might want to, but still be able to keep giving better experience for users as we move along. And so that's kind of the game there. And there are parts of the architecture where we've had to just rip things out and start from scratch, while there's others we had to make these more deliberate trade-offs as we work on things. Luckily, though, for a lot of the smart contract work, there we can just start from scratch entirely, and we don't need to worry so much about what's already there and build it properly. But the smart contracts was really never the issue for us. It was more the front end and the user experience that's already there and maintaining that, as well as the indexers and the data layer that we use as well.
Okay, makes sense. So what would you say is the part of Microchain that you care about the most? It's the user-facing experience. Things that no one notices in particular, but that you care deeply about.
Well, there's always a trade-off, right? We need to, I would love to spend a lot more time on user experience and making the front end of the app a lot better. That's really something I do care about, and I would love to spend a lot of time on. A lot of my past was in sort of design and user experience. The challenge is that users will experience those things, and user will deal with those things disproportionately to other things. But on the other side of the equation, things like capital efficiency, incentives, and increasing liquidity, all these things are very meaningful for the product, and it's actually what's going to make the biggest difference in the end for the users. But it takes a long time to solve, and it's more long-term projects that are much harder to solve, and it might not have any immediate payoff in the short term. And so I care a lot about the user experience side. I would love to spend time on it, but I also need to keep myself disciplined and practical in relation to these longer-term projects that we're doing, which don't have an immediate payoff. And so I do care about having the best possible, trading for traders and having the most incentives and rewards for LPs. That's really ultimately what we should be doing. But then there's the things in the short term that I enjoy doing and want to do that I need to balance in relation to that. And so there's no easy answer to these things. Unfortunately, you always have to make the best possible trade-offs. Every time you make a trade-off, somebody's going to have to pay the cost.
Yeah, I mean that's what being a CEO is, I guess. You have to make trade-offs. You can't make everyone happy just in a snap of a finger. Like you have to build the foundations first, and then going to what matters most.
Totally.
So what would you say, like in this really hard journey, because being a founder is hard, was there ever a moment where you had like second thoughts about dropping the project and doing something else? Because I know that the community sentiment is tough to manage as well. You have to manage expectations. You have different stakeholders that you have to satisfy. So was there ever a moment where you thought about quitting this?
Oh, sure. Running a project is not an easy thing to do, because, as I said, there's always trade-offs, right? You can do things to satisfy a certain user group, and it might come in the short term at the cost of another user group. You have stakeholders and partners that you're working with that you can't always meet their needs and expectations. And so there's been plenty of times where we had to juggle those things, and it's caused some people to not be happy, or our internal team being stretched thin, and it being hard for us to get things out on time, so on and so forth. And so that's just a constant part of the game, and I keep doubting it all the time. But I think, when it comes to the inner work of running a project and the emotional side of it, I think it's very important to know where you derive your meaning and where you derive your motivation. And for me, I've always just tried to get my motivation and meaning from something that is not necessarily tethered to the world outside of myself. Right, the outcomes and the results are going to come if you do the right work, and you're willing to do the hard effort of developing yourself as a leader, developing yourself as a product person, and develop yourself as a human in general. And so just focusing on the input of that and just doing really good work and working really hard and deriving the pleasure from growing as an individual rather than the things that materialize outside of yourself keeps me a lot more grounded and makes it easier for me to get through a lot of these external dramas and issues and crises that come up along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is the same for pretty much everything that happens in your life. If you don't put the hard work in a very consistent way, like in your build, like in your story of building this product, which is obviously very hard, like was there ever sometimes where you fucked up something that changed completely the way you're building now?
Yeah. There's always mistakes. There's always things that you should have predicted or seen or caused issues. We've had had bugs that have gone into production. I should have gone into production. We have made mistakes when it comes to have missing certain type of user feedback that we should have taken seriously much more earlier. All these things are things that come up. And I think that the most important lesson I've learned from these type of experiences is that you can never let your attention off. You always need to be vigilant, and you always need to be engaged and keep your eye on the aim and the outcome that you're striving for. And that every time that you rest on your laurels, or you know, drift and move on inertia alone, there's always room for something to go wrong. You always have to stay on top of things. And that is a constant struggle, and it's constantly difficult, and it's not an easy thing to do. And that applies not just for me, but it also applies for the team. Like, everybody has this tendency to just kind of move on momentum, or get lazy, or not know entirely what to do, and it's just human nature. And so it's also my role not to just be vigilant on behalf of myself, but to be vigilant on behalf of others, and make sure that we're all staying honest, and keep ourselves honest as we go along. And so that has been a very important lesson when it comes to building anything, really. And it goes way beyond Microchain or anything that we're doing. I think it goes to any type of project we can do in our lives.
No, absolutely. You know, like, there is this meme, like, terminally online, that's pretty much what happens in Web3. And I feel like building something is, you have to be even more terminally online, because you have to read the reception of what you're doing consistently, because even if something worked yesterday, it might not work tomorrow. And, you know, there's always bugs that you never find, and that someone will, and maybe it's crucial, maybe it's not, but you have to iterate and iterate over time. Like, the community response can change very rapidly in crypto.
100%.
And so do you feel like you're still proving something, like, as a CEO, but also like as a, like, I know that you care about the user experience. So is there something that do you still prove to yourself as a user by building the product?
I mean, we're always proving something to ourselves in some way or another, right? We, you know, unless you think that you're already perfect and you're already good, then you know, there's always something to work on. And I think it's important to always be, you know, striving to be a higher version of yourself, and striving for higher ideals. And so, you know, I'm not necessarily proving something to others directly, but, you know, I always have high demands for myself, and I always feel like I need to strive higher than where I am.
That's a great spirit. Like, if your North Star is about evolving, then I think you're gonna make it. So, like, we mentioned a lot the term community. I think it's a very important thing in crypto, and so as a builder, it should be like even more important for you. So, what does community mean for something like Microchain?
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about this? Because you're an expert on community. So I'm very curious, how, when you think about crypto projects, how do you define community? I have my own definition somewhat, but I think you have a much more extensive definition of this and a better idea what this really looks like in crypto.
Of course. Yeah, so I think community is like, it's an easy answer, but community is everything. You know, like, you can build the most complicated product ever created, but if it's just code, if it's just a product, and you're not building it for someone that actually needs it, then it's useless, you know. So community should be like the center focus of a project. Like, you have to build for someone, you have to care about this someone, like what they have to say, how they respond to this. Your community is all about finding compromises every day to make them happy. Obviously, you cannot make all your family happy. You have to make trade-offs and everything. So it's all about finding the right balance between what's possible and what brings joy to the majority of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to look at it. And to answer your question, I think that's kind of how we're looking at it too. We always have to keep all the users and the different types of users and the community in mind when making decisions. And it's about weighing those against each other and making the decisions that serve the whole, the center point. And And the reason that matters is because if you just focus on one users, it's often going to come at the cost of another, especially with something like Microchain, which is a two-sided marketplace. On one side, you have liquidity providers. On the other side, you have traders. If I only serve liquidity providers, I might end up not serving the traders because I might attract a lot of liquidity in areas that might not be tokens that any traders want to trade at all. And then the traders are screwed. But if I only listen to traders, then I might end up, reducing the fees or making it easier for them to make trades. But then liquidity providers don't get rewarded, and then they leave. Because there's a constant balancing act where you need to make the best choices, taking all the different user groups into consideration, then keep improving the product. And it's only really by weighing those against each other you can make the right choices. And I think that's why you can say that the word community matters so much, because community is not just about one user group. It's about all the users, not even the users that are using your product, but also the people that are talking about it, that are evangelizing it, and kind of the broader circles around the project and how that interacts with the chain and the other communities that you're part of. And so, that's how I look at it. And I think that that mindset, this sort of externally considering all these different people, is key.
No, absolutely. Like, like when it comes to community, you have to be really straightforward and really understand what they want and what they need. So how would you see community reactions shaping the direction that you're taking as a founder?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, community is everything. You need to constantly be taking in this information and absorbing it and weighing it in relation to the roadmap and the plans that we already have in mind for what we believe is the most important thing for the future. And so right now we just launched a rebrand, and our goal with that, of course, is to, we want to improve the user experience. We refactored the app and reskinned it, but we also added a lot of performance improvement issues. But the main goal is to now kind of show that, hey, there's a vibe shift here. Things are changing. There's a new team, and now we're ready to take in feedback and iterating as a community together. And so, now is the moment for us to engage more deeply and get more feedback. And we would love feedback from anyone that has been using or been involved in the project, such that we can incorporate that into the larger vision.
That makes a lot of sense. So it means that the rebrand is only the step one of the process, right?
100%.
Okay, so what will be like the next real test for Microchain? Like, what moment are you watching closely?
Well, we need to keep our eye on the horizon of what the highest ideal is. And of course, that is improving capital efficiency and making the user experience amazing and great, and growing the amount of volume on the platform and liquidity that we have on the network as a whole. That is the vision. That's where we're going. And I think that's pretty clear, but you also need to make sure that you're always keeping an eye on the next step that you're taking. If you're too focused on the horizon, then you stumble over something and you hurt yourself. And so the next real test is the next step that we're taking, which is to start taking in more feedback from the community and start iterating on the app together with the community more actively. So that's it. And I think it's very important that we keep our eye on the next step. Otherwise, it's easy to, fall in a snake pit.
No, absolutely. Like feedback is everything, especially in crypto. Like before working for Fuel, I was working for various projects, and some of them, just didn't really consider feedback. They were just seeing revenue being made every day, and they were just sitting on it, like not making any changes, even if there were a lot of feedback. And today this project doesn't exist, so that tells you a lot about the stories of building projects. You have to really understand your community and make the best for them. And so, I mean, what are you genuinely excited about right now? Like not what you're supposed to be hyped about, but like what's coming that you're excited about?
Well, I think that one thing that does excite me a lot is the team we have. We got a very good crew now, and we're working really well together. And going through these big projects and changes that we've done recently, it really forced us to hone the way we work together, improve the way we communicate together, and resolve problems, and developing ourselves and our careers. And so I'm very excited about just keep iterating on that and building the team and growing the team, because that is the machine that creates everything else. And so that's not something that anyone else gets to see when they're using the product, but it is very much the thing that creates the product. And so it's a very important part of the process.
Oh, absolutely. And how big is the team, by the way? Like, how many dynos?
It depends a little bit on how you count it. Not all of them are full time, but we're probably around 5-6 people, 4 or 5, depending a little bit on how you count it. So it's a decent team now.
Nice. Okay, so I have a few more questions. So what would you make you feel it's all been worth it? Like, what does success look like, basically, for Microchain?
Well, you can never be guaranteed that the thing you're doing is going to succeed. And so, we're also dependent on the fuel network itself, and we're all working together here to try to build an amazing blockchain and really deliver on the ideals and the vision of what blockchain and blockchain technology can be. But there's externalities, and there's things that could impact that we just don't, is out of our control, quite frankly. And so, as long as I think we're honest with ourselves, we're working on the most important thing, and we're really trying to produce real value, and we're not trying to skimp from the work and try to do the easy thing, I think it's all going to be worth it no matter what. But I'm not sure entirely how that's going to play out. I have a very strong belief that all good work is never done in vain. And as long as we are focused on producing real value and we're honest with ourselves, I think that there's something great's going to come out of this, even if it's not taking the form that you might think it will.
Yeah, totally. I like this spirit. That's a great answer. So, like, looking back at all the journey that you've traveled so far, building Microchain, obviously there's a lot more to do, but like, if you could send one message to yourself before taking this on, what would it be?
It's a good question. Be vigilant.
Any reason?
Well, it kind of goes back to the thing I said earlier, that to build something great and to do good work, you always need to keep an eye on all the details at all times, and never rest on your laurels. I don't think we've done that like a lot, but there's always a tendency in us to kind of get complacent. And so if I were to send a message to myself, I would just keep reinforcing something I already believed at the time, which is work really hard and always stay vigilant, and then that way there's really nothing else you can do. That's really the only thing you have in full control over. And I just wish I had more faith in that in the past, and I think that's something I want to strive for in the future.
I mean, just seeing that you're saying that, like, means you already learned a lesson, so that's great. And so, like, looking at the space right now, like, are there any other projects that you're looking up to and that you can learn from?
I wish I had something at the tip of my tongue I could just throw out there. I think it's more just I don't know if I really have like a specific project I can call out to. I think that everybody in the fuel ecosystem that have stuck around through honestly quite a difficult time, I'm just really impressed by. And I think that it's really important that we keep reinvigorating and keep pushing things forward. And then in general, just all people that are working on just cutting edge tech and figuring out ways of using all these technology to make the world better is something I want to see more of. And people that are not afraid to think differently and hit outside the lines and think independently about what this stuff can do, because it's really only through that we can come up with new and interesting ways of utilizing this tech.
Awesome. I mean, you're already halfway there. I mean, you're building on fuel, so you're already thinking out of the box. So I think that's a very bold mindset you have. So wishing you all the success for Microchain, and I think we can wrap this up on this note. So
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us, Derek. It was a pleasure to have you here for the first episode, and hopefully we can chat about Microchain more, let's say in 6 months, where things can be very different from today, and see what journey you've accomplished.
Sounds great. Thank you, Ruben.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.